All right, welcome into the Dakota Drive, episode 1 of the Dakota Drive here on Monday afternoon, August 25th. And it's hard to believe, but we're at the point where the college football season is getting started, and that's going to be our big focal point today. The idea behind this show is just to kind of give us a bigger format where we can talk a little bit longer than a 3-minute sports block, where we can talk to the people that you guys want to hear from and talk more in depth about sports. Hopefully, learn a little bit more about people that you don't get to get out of a 30-second sound bite that you see on air with us at 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. So that's kind of the idea. And we're starting off pretty big. Eric Schmidt's going to come on, the UND head football coach, scheduled to join us here in just a couple of minutes. UND going into a new era of football. Obviously, Bubba Schweigert moving on in the athletic department, taking a new position. Eric Schmidt, the guy from right here in Mandan, North Dakota, coming in and taking over as the head coach. So that's a pretty cool thing for us people in Western North Dakota to see him coming in, taking over that spot. A guy that it's obvious how much UND means to him. He said when he took this job, this was the only FCS job that he was going to apply for, and he's got a pretty cool background. He spent time at UND and spent time a couple of other places, linked up with Kalen DeBoer, who's obviously now the head coach at Alabama, and he's had a great background since then, going to Washington and being with them during their playoff time, during their playoff run that they had with the Huskies. So he's seen a lot of football at a high level, and he's been transparent about, like, hey, it was important for me to go out and do those kind of things so that I could learn a little bit more and learn a little bit more along the way, and then come back and bring that here. So give us just a second. We're going to bring in head coach Eric Schmidt here. He is getting on the Zoom call, and we're going to get started with head coach Eric Schmidt here in just a second as he joins. Coach, give us just a second here. We're getting you set up. And all right, head coach Eric Schmidt from UND football joining us. How's it going, man? I mean, this is does this week feel a little different? Did you feel a little different waking up this morning and jumping out of bed?
Yeah, it was. I love practice, right? It's awesome to get out here and with all the travel and recruiting and things that go on, like when you just get to do football, with the guys that are on campus, like that's the absolute best part of our job, and just to watch the guys that have come in here and we get a lot of time with them in the summer. But it's not like training camp. Like training camps, you get a huge investment into the football piece of things, and you really find out as training camp goes along, like who really loves it, right? Like, the guys who got to have it in their life. If you took it away from them, they would be devastated. And been excited. Our guys have handled, the mental and the physical grind of what training camp can be, pretty well up to this point. So looking forward now to going out and competing against someone else instead of hitting the same guys day after day after day.
The coach's favorite saying, right? It's good to see somebody in a different color jersey, huh?
Yeah, I think the coaches too. At a certain point, the competitive juices starts going, and you're ready to move on from the training camp part of things, and everybody can get back together, and we can all sit on opposite sides of the staff meeting. We can sit back on the same sides of the table now, and everybody can feel good again about being on the same team.
Yeah, reuniting. Well, this morning announcing who your starting quarterback's going to be. That's obviously what everybody's talking about right now. And just take us through that process. I mean, I saw what you said this morning. It was a competitive race, and Simon coming back made it even tougher. But you end up going with Jerry Kaminsky. Tell me, what's that conversation like? Do you pull him to the side and say, hey, let's go talk? And what was his reaction when you told him, hey, we're going to go with you as the starting quarterback week 1?
Yeah, Coach Frichty actually sat down with those guys and had individual one-on-one meetings with them and let them know, what our decision was. I mean, his relationship with that room is second to none. I mean, those guys all have he can get after them when they need to get at and when they need to get challenged. He can pat them on the back when they need to do that. So it's really a really good learning environment. I just think the communication between the coach and the player, and the player and the coach, is so important when you're trying to create, a learning environment. And Isaac does a great job of that. And those guys, I mean, they competed like every single day. We talk about that. Hey, a big piece of what we're looking for is guys who are out there being consistent all the time. And I think, when we first got here, obviously, felt like we need to improve at that position from a year ago. Simon did a really good job, but we still felt like, hey, if we want to get to where we want to get to, to the top of this league, and competing for championships, that position, like all positions, but that position needs to continue to get better. So bringing in Javance, and then knowing that Jerry had, he kind of had a year now underneath his belt, and could evolve into the second year of the offense. I think that really helped him. I think him and Javance especially have a really, really high ceiling. I think Simon's just a gamer. You know what I mean? Like he is what you want as far as in a teammate, and just the makeup of how competitive he is. His ceiling is high as those other two guys, probably not, but he brings a lot to the table too, as far as intangibles and things like that too as well. But what I was getting at is Jerry probably improved the most. From when we got here in January until through the end of spring. And I think that was a lot to do with, Simon was out at that time, and the other quarterbacks, it was their first spring going through the install and seeing all the pictures and all those types of things. So I thought Jerry kind of, got out to a fast start. And then as the summer went through and Simon came back and Javance got more comfortable, I think every single day we saw, the abilities of all three of those guys. And at one point, I think maybe early to mid-August, I think there was a time where we were like, hey man, this is getting to be, exactly how we want it. Like the other two guys have caught up now. Javance had caught up to Jerry. And then during the last week of camp here, of training camp, I really felt like Jerry took another step, in his development and just leading our offense. And I just think at the end of the day, everybody was asking about what's the date that you have to pick a guy? Like, hey, you're going to pick a guy by this date. And we just felt like, hey, once somebody earned the job, then we were going to make the decision. And I felt like, as we were getting through the weekend here, and what Jerry had done over the last week was, what we were looking for as far as somebody taking that job and earning it. So I think the other two guys are, they're right there. We feel good about their development and good about their futures too as well. And you probably will end up seeing those guys, play a lot of snaps too as well this fall.
Jerry Kaminsky, a quarterback out of Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. His dad's a coach, so you got to like that aspect, right, too? I mean, he's just a guy that loves ball and played his high school ball at Sun Prairie, was a really good quarterback in Wisconsin. But you mentioned, that you've told the other quarterbacks, hey, we're not going to shy away from giving other guys reps. So what does that look like? I mean, is that something where you're going in and you have a game plan to play multiple quarterbacks, or is it a fill it out as it goes kind of thing?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, I look at it like this, like those are, two or three of the best guys on our football team. Like those guys sitting on the sideline next to me, like don't do us any good, and I definitely think there's a skill set there, with our backup quarterbacks that we can utilize. And, I think that's the thing right now that's unique with our position is that, hey, we want to try to get those guys on the field. I think there's some plays that have certain personalities that fit, Javance here too as well. And obviously Simon's been through our offense an entire year, and we want to take advantage of that. I think, we have a pretty veteran offensive line, and I think our tight ends and running backs have improved here throughout training camp. But your offense is still going to take on the personality of the quarterback. Like that's the guy that's going to lead those guys, and they're going to go as he goes. So I definitely feel like we have the ability to be able to throw a curveball, so to speak, at times, or at least use Javance in certain scenarios where we feel like this is a strength of his, and he's really good at knowing these 5 or 6 or 10 plays or whatever that looks like, and get him out there and try to ignite some life in our offense. And if it helps us be able to win football games, ultimately, our job as coaches is to make sure that we're utilizing our personnel to the absolute best of our ability.
So Jerry Kaminsky going to go in week 1 to Manhattan, Kansas against Kansas State, and that's kind of where I want to shift gears and talk about you said UND was the only place in the FCS that you were going to apply for a job. At what point when you're going through any coaching process, but especially this one when you're going for a head coaching gig, do you actually look and see the schedule like, oh, this is who we're going to have to play this upcoming season? At what point did you realize or maybe find out like, hey, you're kicking it off against Kansas State?
Yeah, honestly, I think like probably 5 minutes after my initial phone call, I was like, hey, I got to look at the initial schedule, see like who are we playing this fall? But I got a lot of respect for Coach Kleiman and what he's been able to do there at Kansas State. I think just building it the right way, a consistent person, and you can tell that reflects in his team too as well. Their discipline, real even keel, like. They just have a mature football team. And I think that's something I've talked about with our team too as well. Like, especially early in the season. I mean, the best teams that I've been around, you got really, really veteran guys, mature guys in the locker room that understand that, hey, this is not a sprint; it's a marathon. Every single day matters. There's a lot of football here, obviously, to be played, and I'm excited. I think our guys are excited too as well. Like, hey, we're going to respect everybody that we play, but fear nobody too at the same time. Like we got to go out there and we got to worry about us. Like, that's our entire motto this whole year is us versus us. It's about our guys going out there and playing to the absolutely best of their capabilities and becoming the best versions of themselves. And that's what we're going to focus on come Saturday night.
And you're in a unique position where you've got game tape. You got to watch them play a game already. Obviously, one of the few teams that's played a game. They go over and play Iowa State in Ireland, which is a unique situation. Curious, how do you watch a game like that? Do you watch it as a staff? Do you watch it just by yourself at home with the kids? What's the advantage to seeing a team be able to play a game ahead of you, or disadvantage to knowing that they've already played a game going in?
Yeah, I think there's positive and negatives to both of those. I think, obviously the positive for us is we're watching, guys from a year ago, and you don't really probably know all the pieces of the puzzle that a team's going to have as far as what their personnel is truly going to look like. On game day, and who's nicked up and who's played well in training camp that maybe a team now wants to they've carved out a bigger role for themselves. So I think there's an advantage there just being able to watch a team play, right? Like a week ago. The disadvantage is, hey, it's gonna be the first time that our guys have run down on kickoff. It's gonna be the first time that our guys have had to take a third and long in hostile territory when it's going to be super loud and hard to communicate. And I think you become football conditioned as you go throughout the year, where it's like, hey, you just become second nature, transitioning from third to fourth down and understanding that, hey, there's going to be a media timeout here for, 2.5 minutes, and knowing just how to handle all those pauses in games and stuff like that. And I think the first time you do it, there's, I don't want to say there's anxiety, but it's just new, and you try to simulate as much as you can, in the weeks leading up to it. But I always think like, hey, like the games are for learning, right? Like, practice is about performance. That's what we say. The games are for learning. So you're always going to learn something in every game. And I think the sooner that you can learn some of those lessons and guys on your team can be able to learn from that, then, those are obviously experiences that you can learn from as you go on throughout a season. So I think, like I said, the good part is we got to kind of see a little bit as far as what their identity and what their personnel looks like here in 2025 instead of what it looked like in 2024. And the negative part is that, hey, they've got 100 plays under their belt now of live action, and we're starting from scratch.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Your thoughts on Kansas State's offensive line? They've got a guy from Century High School, Andrew Langang, number 56, playing up front for him, he started over there in Ireland in the first game. Just what were your early thoughts from them from being able to see game one against Iowa State?
Yeah, Andrew's an awesome kid. I knew him a little bit before I left. I think in 2019, and got to see him like as a high school junior, and just followed him a little bit, knowing that we had grown up in the same area, and he plays up and down. I mean, you could tell he's obviously a smart kid. He can play every single position on their offensive line. He kind of went back and forth between tackle and guard last week against Iowa State, but big, strong kid. Obviously has really developed in the weight room there to over his time, and comes from a really good program there at Bismarck Century with Coach Windenbach. So I think all their offensive linemen, they have a couple transfer guys in there. So anytime you got new guys, I think there's definitely, especially with the guys up front, there's some reps that need to be had in order for you to be able to gel and get used to playing guys get used to playing guys next to you, and just kind of the continuity of taking and receiving communication and all those types of things. But really talented. I think their tight ends are really good players too as well. They've been able to recruit some talent. The body types are what I would call A1 body types. They're 6'5", 255 to 265 pound guys that can, they're threats in the pass game. They're hard matchups throughout the middle of the field. When they split them out, they present some matchups for your corners just with their size and their length. And then I think their running back crew is as good as, anybody in that league, like top to bottom. They've had a little bit of injuries, but I think we'll see Dylan Edwards. We got to plan on seeing him in both the backfield and in the return game too as well. So I think their running back room is really, really talented, and guys that we're going to have to do a great job of being able to get those guys on the ground if we're going to be successful. And they brought in some receivers, guys that are super long, 6'5" guy from Boston College, and another long receiver from Purdue University. So they've upgraded there too as well. I know just watching those guys the other night, like when they needed plays, those guys were able to come through in some clutch times there in the fourth quarter. And then obviously we just got done talking about our quarterback, but their quarterback's an elite player, can do some things with his feet as well as throw the ball. His arm strength is as good as anybody we've been around. I've actually, was on a recruiting visit with him when we were at the University of Washington. So do know Avery a little bit from those days too as well, and just know that he's a homegrown Kansas kid that as he goes they go, but he's super dangerous, like with his arm, and obviously the threats that they have on the edges, but just as much with his feet too as well, and whether that's designed running plays for the quarterback or just when he lives back there scrambling, man, he does a great job both with his arm and with his feet.
It's always funny to see how the recruiting world keeps everyone together, right? You recruited, part of Avery Johnson, part of Andrew Langay, seeing those guys come along. All right, we're going to get you out of here on this because I know we're running out of time. Rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to mind. All right. What does Eric Schmidt eat for breakfast on a daily basis?
Wow. What do I eat for breakfast? Toast.
Okay. Favorite part of being back in North Dakota, not football related.
Ooh, favorite part. No traffic.
Heard that. Favorite thing you did this off season with the family?
Oh, boy, it was pretty uneventful. Let's just say going to the lake.
Okay. Best college football environment you've played in or coached in on the road?
On the road?
So you can't cop out with Washington or anything.
Yeah, I'll probably say I'm gonna say Autzen Stadium, the University of Oregon.
Okay. Yeah, good environment there. Last one. Do you call heads or tails for the first coin flip, or do you leave it up to the player? He gets to decide.
Always tails.
Always tails. Tails
Always
never
tails.
fails, right? All right. I was going to ask if you'll kick or receive, but that's a little too deep, so I'll let you keep that one in your back pocket. Surprise us Saturday. All right, Eric Schmidt, thanks so much for joining us, Coach, on the Dakota Drive. Good luck this weekend down in Manhattan, Kansas against Kansas State. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Luke. You have a great week.
You too. All right, there he goes, Eric Schmidt, head coach of the University of North Dakota football team. And what a great way to kick off the Dakota Drive here. And they're going to have their hands full, but it should be an exciting game here on the road in Manhattan, Kansas, as UND gets a tough test against Kansas State. We talked about it. I mean, maybe one of 10 teams that's played a college football game here as we head into the weekend of August 30th. So it's a unique situation. You get that film on a team, you get to see how they play, who they've played against, how they've matched up. Like Coach Schmidt said, on the other hand, you're starting at rep 0. You haven't kicked off the ball at all or anything like that. So it's a unique situation for UND. And then you talk about Jerry Kaminsky. I mean, he played 3 or 4 games last year in a backup role, and now he's going to be thrust into a hostile environment in Manhattan, Kansas, as those guys are obviously going to be hungry coming off the game against Iowa State. And then you got a question. I mean, they're coming back from Ireland. What does that look like as they travel back, from playing in an overseas game? They don't get a bye week or anything like that, and it's just a normal week. So we'll be interested to see what that looks like on Kansas State side of things. Coach Schmidt obviously mentioned they're preparing for Dylan Edwards, arguably one of the best running backs, definitely in the league that he's playing in, maybe in the country. Got injured early in that game against Iowa State, so it's going to be interesting to see what the dynamic is as he possibly returns to the field. There were so many things that were going on in that game. It was so interesting to see what is that environment like as they go overseas. You have the fireworks smoke that's lingering around as the game's getting ready to kick off, and then you've got a field that seems a little wishy-washy as it's raining, and obviously you hate to see a guy like Dylan Edwards go down early in that game, but that's the nature of what college football is right now, right? Trying to draw more eyes and trying to do that by doing something unique and going to Ireland and playing something that college football has done for the last few years now. But we're going to keep talking college football here. Our next guest, Pete Stanton, the head coach of Dickinson State, as they get set to kick off their season on Thursday this week. Something that's not necessarily new for the Blue Hawks, but something that's a little bit different, and they're going to transfer into a new conference, playing in the Frontier Conference this year. So we'll have a lot to talk about with him as well as we get into things there. But we're going to take a quick look before we bring Coach Stanton on. Just a couple of notable games this week. Lots of college teams obviously kicking off. UMary will be at home against Midland University. Another Thursday night kickoff. The NSIC kind of dipping their toes into the Thursday night kickoff. Minot State, they're going to be on the road on Thursday at Emporia State, year 2 under head coach Ian Shields. Obviously, they got off to a great start last year, historic start for Minot State football, so it's going to be interesting to see what year 2 looks like under Ian Shields. And then NDSU go into the Citadel, playing in Carolinas, and the interesting thing with the Citadel, their quarterback and starting running back are reportedly going to be out for the game. So we'll see what that means for NDSU, for the Bison, and as they kind of get into year 2 under head coach Tim Polasek, and we're working on getting head coach Pete Stanton in here as we get ready to switch gears and talk about the Frontier Conference and what Dickinson State has ahead this season. We're going to bring in head coach Pete Stanton here. Give me just a minute. All right, there he is, head coach Pete Stanton. Athletic director and head coach. I got to give you credit. I mean, obviously not a ton of guys doing that right now. So let's start there. For you, and when you're an athletic director and a football coach, and you talk about all this conference changing and what that looks like, how much more difficult does that make your job? The fact that you're having to think about it not only on the football front, but on the front of managing the entire athletics department.
Yeah, it was a very busy spring. And, one of the things that I was on the transition committee, that part helped because I was able to give be involved in the input regarding, not just football, but all the sports. But yeah, it was very busy, a lot of things going on. Fortunately, Coach Fleury, who's our softball coach, handles a lot of things in the fall while I can try to handle football, and that's really helpful that she can take on those responsibilities, and we have other people doing other duties to make it work out. Otherwise, it would never work out. So we're really thankful to have the help we do.
Yeah. Well, you kick things off Saturday against Valley City State. I mean, Thursday against Valley City State, you guys have done the Thursday kickoff before. It's not something new to you. Is that, as a football coach, is that something you like? Is it something you don't like? Is it something that you've just come accustomed to after doing it for a few years, or how did we get to this point?
We got to the point, we over Labor Day, we think it's been a really popular thing in our community, and I think the same, in other places. I think a couple things, with the heat early in the year and avoiding that Saturday afternoon, sometimes it can be not in the 90s and be difficult. But on the other end of it, we felt that, by playing on Thursday night, our crowds, we always get good crowds, but even better knowing, hey, people have the long Labor Day weekend where Saturday afternoon it was a little tougher for them. So I think that was part of the reasoning too. And really, we wouldn't do it probably other than the first game, that works out well. And then we just take a little time afterwards and have an extra time period in there too over Labor Day weekend to regroup.
Yeah, I'm sure that's nice to get a little bit of extra reps after coming in full sprint to a first game of the season. Um, you, you talk about transferring to the Frontier Conference, and there's teams that you're probably familiar with, but there's also probably some teams that are going to be new. So for you guys, when you talk about a busy spring, how much of that is looking at those new teams and figuring out what they've done in the past, what kind of systems they've run, that kind of thing? Is that something that you spent a whole lot of time doing, that you gave your assistants a lot of time to spend doing, or how do you approach seeing so many new faces in the span of a short amount of time?
Yeah, we kind of did it by committee and looking at some of those teams. But for us, actually, whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, where our crossover games are with the Montana teams, with Western and Carroll, who Western we've played quite a bit lately. So obviously we played. They beat us in the playoff game, in the second playoff game this year, and we haven't played Carroll for quite some time. So that was really probably more so. Looking more into them and their personnel and doing that. And then, Northern Montana, the same thing, a team that we used to play but haven't played in many years. So, yeah, there has been some extra research into it to get accustomed to, some of those teams that will cross over and play.
You guys picked to finish second in the Frontier Conference in the preseason polls. Part of the other unique thing with your scheduling, and I say unique, it hasn't been unique to you guys for the past few years, but having to play some teams twice during the regular season. Again, is that something you've gotten used to at this point? What are the challenges as you approach a new season, knowing, hey, we're going to see these guys on Thursday night, but we're going to see them again down the line? How do you approach that as a head coach?
Yeah, and you're right. It was one of those things that's fortunate for us. We have done that, and we are glad not to do it as much. I think if you probably had a preference, you would play nobody twice. But here's the thing on that. When we looked at the whole picture, and you look at the landscape of this conference, being from the West Coast into California and Oregon, and just looking at it and saying, yeah, Dickinson could go over and play Southern Oregon and vice versa, but that you're taking $100,000 budget cut or budget situation. So we looked at, okay, Dickinson State and Valley City are familiar. Montana Tech's doing it with Rocky. They're crossing over and doing that as well. So I think there's 4 or 5 teams playing each other twice, to really more budget implications more than anything.
Do you think, obviously you mentioned those other teams that are further out. I realize that presents opportunity, but it also, like you said, it's tough to make those things happen operating in a budget. But do you think down the line or in the future, it opens possibilities for you guys to stretch the scheduling a little bit and do some unique things?
Yes, I think it really does. I think we'll have that opportunity to do more crossovers. We put it on a 2-year cycle, seeing how, just trying to get it set for the first 2 years and getting everybody home and away. So the 2 crossover games that we will play those 2 teams in 26, home and away. And being a part of this transition committee, then that's what we talked about with football. Then, okay, now what's the next step that we take, so we don't have the double ups and things like that. And those are things definitely we're gonna look at going forward, and try to make that work, not just for football, but really for all the sports, and how we format everything with the distance.
Yeah. Well, as you dive into a new season, things are going to look different on offense with a new quarterback. Obviously, you graduate a guy with tons and tons and tons of experience, and Bismarck's Will Madler. You bring in a guy who, out of high school, walked on at the University of Oregon. So tell us a little bit about Marcus Sanders for people that don't know kind of his background and just how he got to Dickinson State after starting out at that level.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus, as you said, walked on at Oregon, and then wasn't going to be in the mix after a couple of years, and then he transferred to a junior college and started for a year there. Then another coach brought in a quarterback with him as well, so he kind of split time with that guy, and so he's got 2 years into it, and we were, looking at we felt good about the guys we have. Jace Freese from Flasher does a great job. Hudson Grovem does a good job. We wanted to make sure that we had another guy in the room as well, and it worked out to get him over. And he's a guy. He runs a little bit like Will. He's not blazing fast, but we know he's faster than Hayden Gibson was, and he's a guy that. A guy that really has a good command of the offense for being in a short time. He's 6'5", 230. He's a real big physical kid, and he's a good leader and good person. He fit in well with our guys, and it was tougher in the spring just trying to get everything accustomed. But going through the summer and the fall, he's really made some good adjustments, and he's fit in well.
Obviously, for a guy like that coming to a completely new place, not something unique for you guys and the way you recruit, but were there some things that he brought to the table in terms of just preparation and things like that you felt were good from his experience in the past and the places he's been?
Yeah, I think just his ability to get the ball out and throw the ball well, and I think also his experience. He had experience at the college level, not just being on the team at Oregon, but playing and starting in games and a good junior college conference, and so he'd been had seen teams and seen defenses at a high level and all those type of things, and that really played into effect too. That a guy that had that experience and started some football games at the college level.
I wanted to ask you about Samaj Clark, a guy that's played a lot of football. He was one of the best players in the conference last year. He's going into a new conference, and I fully expect he'll probably be in the mix for that same kind of thing again. What are your expectations for a guy like that who's played a lot of minutes and has a lot of hype around him going into a new season and expecting him to be a leader on this team?
Yeah, very, very high expectations for him. And speaking of a leader, he was elected as one of our captains, and he's got that mindset and that leadership ability that's outstanding. He's really taken another step this year. I think last year he had an outstanding year. He was a first team all conference player, but I think throughout the spring and throughout the summer, he worked very, very hard. He was here all summer, and I think he's been, he's improved, and that's a good thing for us. I think he's a guy that, really has to, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, we just need him to be as consistent as he can be. But he's got tremendous ability. He's a great leader, and we have really high expectations for him this year.
I'm going to backpedal a little bit. You mentioned Hayden. He was on your staff, and he's made his way down to Kansas State. And we were just talking about Kansas State. So just how proud are you of that guy to go find a spot on a coaching roster at a place like Kansas State? Hayden Gibson, a guy that a lot of local people around here know.
Yeah, I couldn't be more proud of Hayden. He was our all-time leading passer here at Dickinson State, was outstanding, was like a coach on the field, and we were just really fortunate to get 5 years with him on our staff as well. And we just really miss his presence, his personality. He got along great with everyone. And then, he's taken that next step and gone down to Kansas State and said, Coach, this has been some big adjustments. And this, I don't know about this and I don't know about that. I said, you're going to do great. And then you look on the sidelines in Ireland, and there he was, signaling in defense. His role is actually looking out ahead on the other team's offenses. So he's actually on the defensive side of the ball, helping out there. And he's outstanding. We miss him, but we know he's going to do great where he's at Kansas State.
That's so cool. So cool to see him switch sides of the ball too, and be on the other side. Talking a little bit more about this year's team, you've got a lot of local ties and a lot of young guys that are on your two deep that you're expecting to contribute this year from around Western North Dakota. Trey Swanson, a guy from Beach that's on your two deep. Rustin Mendenwald from Mandan. Chase, Selly, guys like that. How important are those guys to the foundation of what you guys do, and how excited are you about the future of having those Western North Dakota kids there?
Yeah, really, that's where it all starts is in Western North Dakota, and we start our recruiting in Dickinson and throughout Southwest North Dakota, and we always talk about really our recruiting, footprint having to be from Billings to Bismarck. And, obviously we have a lot of great players from other areas, but that's, really where it starts in the Bismarck Mandan area. You mentioned Rustin. He's going to get the start for us at corner. He's a long, athletic guy. Doug Sheldon's redshirting this year, but he's done a great job for us there. And you mentioned Trey Swanson at tackle. He'd be a starting tackle for us. So just on and on. The Dickinson Trinity guys that we have here, Nathaniel Jillick's going to end up being, starting for 3.5 years for us at outside linebacker. Ty Dossinger will be one of the running backs. We got a really tough running back to replace in Braden Zuroff, but he will be a little bit more by committee at running back. But that's the heart and soul of our team, are those guys that from our area here and from Southwest North Dakota, really all of Western North Dakota, that are big contributors to our program.
And I wanted to ask you about this just because it's something that I've been talking a lot with people about, but this is the 100-year anniversary of Dickinson State football. How much have you talked to your guys about what that means? How much have you guys had conversations about it? Because obviously there's a lot that you guys are doing outside and as a university to celebrate that. So just how much has it been a conversation around the team?
It has been. It's our guys are well aware of it, and we kind of had a prelude a couple of years ago where we knew this was coming up, so we had to get a small reunion of guys, and really the small reunion turned into about 200 former players, and they came down into our locker room after the game and sang a song, and a lot of those guys were around, and they were like, "Hey, we're going to be back in a couple of years." So our players are well aware of it. I think there's a lot of excitement behind it. There's been a book that's come out already, and a lot of excitement. For me personally, I've had several teammates that I haven't seen in 25 to 30 years that are going to be back here over the weekend in October. So it's going to be a really exciting thing for our program, and our players are well aware of of what we got going on in the past, and they're excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You get things started on Thursday against Valley City State. That'll be a big opponent to kick it off, the first of 2 times that you'll see them this season. We appreciate you coming on. We're going to be talking a lot more about this 100-year anniversary. Matter of fact, we've already got some stories that I've been out shooting and stuff like that, so I'm excited to share those here in the coming weeks as things get started. I'll be out in Dickinson on Thursday for the kickoff of the 100-year season, so you guys stay tuned here on KFYR for that. Coach, last thing, we're going to get you out of here with a couple of rapid-fire questions. First thing that comes to mind, yes, no, whatever comes to mind. I'm going to ask you the same. I'm going to start the same way I did with Eric Schmidt. What does Pete Stanton's breakfast order look like?
It's pretty light, pretty quick, bar and banana and out the door. We don't spend a lot of time with that.
My kind of guy. All right. When you've got a new quarterback, is your goal, or not your goal, your expectation over or under 200 yards passing in the first game of the season?
Probably a little bit over, but I would say the main expectation is take care of the football. Like we tell the quarterback, I don't give our quarterbacks a lot of advice other than you take care of the football, you value the football.
I think you guys averaged a little over 200 last year. So good answer. Favorite game day tradition at Dickinson State?
I think our hawk walk that we have before the game, we have a speaker come from one of our former players or somebody that's connected to our program. They talk to our guys beforehand, and then we walk out through the tailgate, and they get a chance to crank up the music, and people meet with us. And I think that's a really special thing. And I'm going to give a close runner-up to our rodeo team bringing horses onto the field before the game. I think we have 2 really, really cool traditions.
Yeah, I like that one. That one's unique. And speaking of that, you guys are doing like a food competition at every tailgate this year. I think I'm gonna come early on Thursday just so I can be a guest judge or something. Maybe I can weasel my way in there. So that's my next question. The best cook that you know in Dickinson, who has the best tailgate food?
Well, boy, I'm gonna have to go with Barb. I don't want to don't want to offend her because she cooks for us all the time. Her and her husband Mike. But boy, that's a tough one. Wade Mishke from Mandan might disagree because he leads a parent group. And our tailgates are awesome. I don't get to be a part of them. Someday
Right.
I will. But our tailgates are. We have an incredible atmosphere at our pregame.
Yeah, I love that. A tailgate competition for, I think, almost every home game this year. I think Thursdays maybe tacos or something like that. So that's awesome. Well, Coach, thanks for joining us. We'll see you on Thursday night. Valley City State coming out to the BAC to take on Dickinson State in the first game of the year. We appreciate the time, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Luke. Thanks for all you guys do.
Absolutely. Have a good one. All right, that's
You
Pete
too.
Stanton, head coach of the Dickinson State Bluehawks football team as they get set to take on Valley City State in the first game of the season on Thursday night. We mentioned it. They've been doing that Thursday night thing for a few years now, and it's something that they've kind of settled into. But it's just such a unique thing, and I think it's a cool thing because it gets all eyes on their program, right? And Dickinson State, we're going to be talking a lot about them here in the coming weeks as we've got some things scheduled in terms of stories and things. I've gotten a chance to talk to some really cool people affiliated with Dickinson State about this 100-year anniversary and just what it means, the pageantry that comes along with this program and that kind of thing. And obviously we've seen the success in the last 10, 15, 20 years. But talking to people about what came before that, what it looked like in the 50s, what it looked like in the 40s, some really cool stories there. And we just talked about a guy that will be playing on Thursday night in a starting role, Rustin Mendenwald. He's from Mandan, North Dakota. And we're going to talk to his old head football coach here, Todd Sheldon. He's our next guest, Mandan head football coach Todd Sheldon coming on to join us here. And we're going to get reset with Coach Sheldon. How's it going, Coach?
Excellent. Great day to be a Brave.
Great day to be a Brave. All right, well, we were just talking to Pete Stanton, and so we're going to pick up there. Rustin Mendenwald, he's going to start at Dickinson State this Thursday, and, I mean, you guys have a ton of guys at the college level right now that I'm sure you're proud of, but for a guy like Rustin to see him get a start in a position like that for Dickinson State, how cool is that?
It's awesome. But actually, the first time I've heard it, I got to see a little bit of their scrimmage this past week and saw that he was out there running with the number ones and hoping that meant good news for him. So I'm excited for him. Good opportunity.
Yeah. Well, we'll circle back to your college guys here in just a minute, but I want to talk Mandan football. You get the season started on Friday. You go on the road to Fargo North. And my first question is, how did it work out that every team in the WDA is going to Fargo? Are you just going to share buses with everybody else to get out there? Is that something you like, you dislike, you don't really care about?
I didn't pay much attention to anybody else's schedule, and I just heard on Friday night when we were doing our scrimmage that everybody was headed to Fargo and kind of chuckled about it and said, well, I hope somebody uses the bowl and Star Inn over the weekend, so no sense in having them sit empty.
Right. Well, good news is if anything happens, you forget anything at the house, someone can bring it to you, I'm sure. You get a chance to tee it up against Fargo North in week 1. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are looking like this season. You obviously replace one of the best players in the state from last year in Hudson Sheldon, but you're replacing QB1, wide receiver 1, some pieces off of that defense that were really important, but starting with Hudson and Jensen Schultz, I mean, how tough is it to replace two guys of that caliber?
Hudson, Jensen, and Tristan Ulmer, 3 of the best combination pass catching kids we've had in a long time here. Those guys are really hard to replace. The kids who are here now understand that they're not going to see quite the same kind of looks. We're going to have to develop ourselves as we go through the year. On the bright side of this whole thing, I'm going to have the 4th Carlson brother start for us, which helps out a little bit.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And Tristan, another guy that's in the NSIC now. Hudson and Jensen here. You marry Tristan at Moorhead, MSUM Moorhead, right?
Yep. Yep.
So multiple guys that have gone on to the college level out of this Mandan program, and you've got a ton of them to keep track of. Whenever you talk about this year's squad and you talk about replacing big pieces, you also have some pretty good linemen coming back that have some pretty good potential, it seems like. What kind of confidence do you have in that, and what kind of confidence does that give you as a coach, knowing that if you have to replace a quarterback, you've got some pretty good guys to protect them up front?
Between Nathan Folk, Dante Bernine, Leighton Giggy, all had a lot of experience last year, and then throw in Marshall, Horst, and Tate and Giggy. There's 5 guys with really good experience, and then I really feel like the other kids have really stepped up over the course of the summer in that lineman group. Jacob Bauman looks like he's going to play a ton of snaps. Cam Ekstrom has really come a long way in terms of football knowledge. So I feel really comfortable with those guys. After the scrimmage, I got, you know what, we're not going to be the biggest team, but we're not tiny by any stretch of the imagination.
And obviously you get these games up front on the front part of the schedule like everyone else against the east side of the state. Obviously every coach wants to win every game, but how much does it help knowing that you have those non-conference games on the front end of the schedule to get these guys in sync?
For us, it means a lot for us because we have so much inexperience in terms of game situation, especially in the quarterback receiver room. And we didn't really have a tight end last year after Braden Bosch had an injury early in the year. So we spent a lot of time in this offseason trying to help develop tight ends and get some of that aspect of our football program going again. Just ended up with not many guys in that tight end room, and I think those kids can help us a ton, but they need game experience.
Yeah. Well, lining up against Fargo North on the road in week 1, what are your expectations as you go to Fargo North? What do you know about them, and what do you expect of them in week 1?
I think that both programs are in a weird spot, so we're struggling to get. We want those numbers to be up higher, but our enrollment is, such that we're at about 500 males in school, and we have a fifth of them on the football team. We'd like to see it push up to that 115, 120 number and get a little bit more competitive. I think they're in the same kind of realm. Like they just need kids to get out and play. And as far as the game on Friday goes, we have some holes to fill from last year. They have some holes to fill from last year. Whether they'll play life conservatively or try to exploit some things that maybe we haven't seen in the past from them, that first game has got all sorts of question marks.
That's the exciting part about game 1, right? Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back to your college guys. A lot of those guys on last year's team going into college, you guys had tons of athletes, but obviously the one that everyone knows right now is Jackson Dutenheffer at North Dakota State. What was your reaction to seeing him being named a captain for the Bison last week?
It's about time. The guy's a natural leader, and I in my head he's been a captain for 2 years already. You just watch how he controls himself, how he plays the game, how he interacts with his teammates. I just think he's a human being that is a natural leader, and throw on top of that besides leadership, he's got skills at the position he plays, and he has the kind of knowledge that you really would love to have in any program.
Well, Jackson, one of 6 captains. He's the only one from North Dakota, which I think is really cool. And I know that you guys in Mandan are super proud of that. And there's obviously we talk about these guys that have gone on to play at the next level. And Jackson is one that's getting a lot of focus as he goes into this senior campaign. And then at the same time, you have an old Mandan guy in Eric Schmidt taking over at UND. So just tell me a little bit about the Mandan pride that goes along with all of those things, because I feel like, you see it so much out of you guys' community, and people are so vocal about how proud they are of those guys that have come from those roots.
We really feel good about the different avenues that people have taken to get to that next level of athletics, and really proud of really all the kids that are out there. I saw Anthony Johnson at Mayville State was just named team captain for the Comets. So there's opportunities for kids to go out and do great things coming out of Amanda, and we want to keep on making that happen as much as we possibly can. Dudenheffer at NDSU he's just such a phenomenal kid, and well, he's not a kid anymore, but just such a phenomenal person. And Eric Schmidt was probably the poster child for this is what a man and athlete is: just tough, gritty, hard-nosed guy. The epitome of a linebacker. And when he played for himself, he brings that same level of energy and that same intensity to his coaching style.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we're going to get you out of here on this. A few rapid fire questions as Mandan gets set to take on Fargo North in the first game of the season to kick things off on Friday night. Rapid fire questions, just first thing that comes to mind, starting with the brand new high school you guys have. What's your favorite part about the new high school?
There's not a favorite. Like, there's so many amazing things. The cafeteria is amazing. My classroom's amazing. The weight room is absolutely unbelievable. There's maybe 3 better weight rooms in the state, and they're at UND and NDSU. Maybe one other place has got a better weight room. That place is stellar. There's nothing bad about this place. I can't think of anything that I would complain about. Just lucky to be here.
I was expecting weight room to be number one at the top. All right, whenever you're having to travel to Fargo, which I know you have to do a lot, what's your favorite food spot to hit, either along the way or in Fargo?
We get butcher block sandwiches for the road, and they're my favorite part of the trip because those things are awesome. Just a Fat Boy butcher block sandwich, nobody can beat it.
All right, we're on the opposite end of this right now, but you're one of those guys that's wearing shorts for like 99% of the season. What does the temperature have to be for you to wear pants on the sidelines?
It's got to be less than 30 for sure. So when there's a potential for snow, I might wear pants.
Potential for snow. That's the baseline. All right. This one might be the toughest one. If you have to compete against Hudson Sheldon in a sport that you think you could win, what would the sport be?
It would be golf. He's awful.
All right, Hudson Sheldon, noted not good at golf. All right, so we'll let him stick to the quarterback then. I'm gonna ask you one last real quick though. Him and Jensen obviously going to UMary. What have you heard from them after just experiencing fall camp for the first time in college? What's been the feedback like, and how excited are they?
The thing that they always come back to is, it's not as physically demanding. And the learning curve is so steep for them with you're learning a whole new offense. You're learning all new plays. The formations might be the opposite of what you called something in high school, just all over the place. We're numbers based program. They don't say a single number in their program. It just all verbiage. It's like learning a second language for them. And there's not a great way to prepare a kid for that. And you hear it from, you hear it from Carson Jablonski and Owen Grass, and you heard it from Jackson Dutenheffer, and Rustin says the same thing. It's like learning a whole new language, and there's no cheat code.
Yeah, well, they're doing a good job learning, it seems like. Well, we appreciate it, Coach. Todd Sheldon, the head coach of Mandan football, as they get set to head to Fargo North to kick off the season. Thanks so much for coming on and joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good one. All right, well, that's it. Mandan head football coach Todd Sheldon getting set to open the season on the road at Fargo North. A lot of those guys going to contribute in college from Mandan. He mentioned Carson Jablonski, a guy that we just did a story on here. He's expected to be a big part of that UMary offense. They've got a new offensive coordinator at UMary that they're really excited about. So we'll see what Carson's able to contribute. And guys just littered throughout the state, right? Mayville State, Dickinson State, Valley City State. Mandan has a lot of guys that are contributing at a high level in college right now. Real quick, we're going to touch on a couple more notable games this week as the football season really gets ramped up here. A lot of Class 11A and 9-man teams kicked off this past weekend. Class AAA and AA kicking off this week. Another one I have circled, Legacy at West Fargo Cheyenne. Cheyenne, the defending state champs, and expected to compete again. I mean, if you had to pick a 1A team in Class AAA right now, I think it'd be hard to bet against West Fargo Cheyenne. And we'll find out just in about an hour or so when the first NDAP SSA polls of the season come out for Class AAA and Class AA, exactly where West Fargo Cheyenne is ranked and where everyone else sits. Legacy, just like many of the other teams in the WDA, replacing a quarterback. They have a really good receiver that just committed to Minnesota State Moorhead. They've got a really good running back coming back off of an injury. What does that look like for Legacy? I think there's some question marks, but I think there's a lot of potential. I'm excited to see what they've got this year. Another one I've got circled, Fargo South at Dickinson. Dawson McLaughlin, a former Dickinson State player, the new head coach at Dickinson High School. What will that look like with him at the helm? Dickinson Trinity here in Bismarck against Shiloh Christian. Trinity won on a last-second play against Bowman County at home this past week, 12-6. It was an exciting finish. Low-scoring game, obviously. Does Trinity keep that momentum rolling? Can Shiloh stop them? Shiloh's got a lot of young pieces. They've got a newer quarterback there. And then Napoleon at Kidder County in 9-man. Two new head coaches going against each other in 9-man football. Both of them getting a win in their first game of the season this past weekend in Mandan. So that's the lineup of the games I've got circled on my calendar. And this has been week 1 of the Dakota Drive. Excited to kick off something new here in our KFYR Plus studio. We'll be here with you every Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. We'll have this available on playback on our website a little bit later on, so you can play it back in case you missed anything. Lots of good things today. Head coach Eric Schmidt from UND football, head coach Pete Stanton from Dickinson State football, and Mandan football coach Todd Sheldon. We're excited about having this. We're going to have some more in-depth conversations, help you get to know some of the guys and people that are in these programs that are running things, and hopefully you get to know them a little bit better and on a deeper level as we get to have more in-depth conversations and maybe bring some fun things too. So thanks for joining us on the first episode of the Dakota Drive right here on KFYR Plus. I'm Sports Director Luke Gamble. We'll see you tonight at 6 and 10, and we'll see you right back here next Monday on the Dakota Drive on KFYR Plus TV.